I think the last time I spoke about Ben in front of a crowd like this was when he and Miranda got married 16 years ago. Quickly, how many of you out here played with Ben, a sport? A lot of people. He's going to get up here and probably thank a lot of people. One person he's not going to thank is himself, so that's fine. I got to experience a lot of amazing things with Ben, a lot around athletics. The four of us are a very tight-knit family. We would travel all over the country sometimes to watch Ben play. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about, give you a glimpse of who Ben is. You heard it, for those of you that were at the football game last night, you heard his accomplishments. I could read you his accomplishments. He's done a lot of great things here and outside of Academy. But those don't come without hard work and without a lot of sacrifice. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So in my job, I travel around the country to talk about the importance of family. And I get to do that today, but about my family. So this is really a unique opportunity, and I want to really focus on what makes Ben special, why he was able to accomplish what he was able to accomplish, and talk about some of the fun things that we got to witness. So Ben's a doctor. He's trained in sports medicine. I'm 20 months older than him. Think back to 1992. We're on a 4th grade basketball team, my team. And every once in a while he would play on my team. So I'm 10, he's 8. There was one of the teammates on our team hurt his ankle. Ben jumped up and was out there wrapping ankles at age 8. So he's had this in him since he was a little boy. And you know, you fast forward to another great memory. We got to go down to Walt Disney World. He was on, many of you don't know this either, he was on a national championship AAU basketball team. And a lot of local guys here, we saw some amazing talent, a lot of pros that you would recognize. He didn't play. But his teammates nominated him to be the captain of the team. And during the national championship game, he walks out to center court, extends his hand, and shakes hands with Chris Paul, maybe the greatest point guard the NBA has ever seen. That's arguable, but for the purpose of the story, we'll go with it. So, you know, traveling to soccer games, and the list goes on. You get to this point, to be number 50 out of 113 years of a school's excellent athletics, you've got to be special. So I focus on 3 things. 1, Ben has an unwavering confidence about it. Second to none, except maybe my wife. But he is as confident a person that you'll ever meet, in a good way. You know, I try to emulate that and have witnessed that since growing up. He brings his entire self, that entire confidence to everything he does. For those of you that played with him, you witnessed it. And with that comes an incredible commitment to excellence. He holds himself to a high standard. He holds people around him to a high standard. He holds me to a high standard. And with that comes accountability, which can frustrate people, but he only wants the best. And lastly, he does things the right way with integrity. And these are all related. And that's what makes a great athlete. That's what I've witnessed. I was not that, but I witnessed it, and I love to witness it. I like to witness it with Allie and Blaine, with my own kids, professionally. I'm a lover of sports, so this is fun. Growing up to watch this, to witness this. So it was an honor to nominate Ben to be a part of this, because he earned it. And lastly, I want to talk about the importance of, for my children, for Blaine and Allie, the importance of a sibling lifting up another sibling, and how critical his success was to my success. And when one celebrates another sibling, it lifts everybody up. So I hope Blaine and Allie will do that. I hope my children will do that. And I know Ben's probably got a lot more to talk about than I do, so I'm going to give him that time. But it's important to see that. And as competitive as we are together, we're also the first to lift each other up. And have been that way, and will continue to be that way. So you earned this honor. It's pretty cool to be number 50. And I'm honored to nominate you, and come up here and show us some pictures.
I just wanted to say thanks to be in the presence of Amy, Murata Lester. Gosh, I remember when I got the phone call, and Amy's on the list with you. There's a little bit of imposter syndrome, and that was the first thing I told Miranda, because it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm on with Amy. It's hard. It's really hard to be on with Amy Murata, but just really grateful to be here. And I think for those of you who know her, you would all agree. I do want to thank the Academy community, the alumni board for the nomination, my friends and family that are here. This is a really special place. So like Dean, I wanted to throw up 3 goals and objectives here. So my job, I teach resident doctors and medical students. So it's hard for me to give a presentation without some slides today. So I did want to do that. So I got to dig through some memories today and go through a couple of things. So I have 3 things I wanted to share. Things that I was very fortunate here at Academy. I lived through legends of coaches. Many of whom are here today. Coach Brown, Coach Kirk, Coach Worsler, Coach Exline. Mr. Tong. I lived through a lot of legends, so I'm going to talk about the legends and how they kind of shaped me today. The second thing is, Dean kind of touched on this, and we didn't plan this, but this was part of my speech, was things that I learned on being a team captain, being the best player on the team, but also learning how to be, the worst player on the team. But you can always figure out ways to make your team better. And so that's been a motto I've always lived by. It's something I tell our resident doctors. It's something I tell my kids. When you're on a team, always find ways to make the team better today. And then the third thing is the Academy experience, which I know many of you have experienced it here. This is a truly, truly remarkable place. I just caught Mrs. Key ran out of the corner of my eye. We have so many legends here as we, came here and had breakfast this morning. Mrs. Corby, Mr. Neal. I mean, there's too many to name. So that's kind of where I wanted to start. And I promised Blythe I wouldn't, so Blythe is a professional coach in speaking. I promised I wouldn't talk for too long, but for the next 45 minutes, I'm just kidding. Dean really caught me off guard there. All right, so as Dean alluded to, hopefully we'll see if this comes up here, we are a very close-knit family. So we grew up in Grove City, Ohio, no cousins, aunts, or uncles. Both my parents were only children. So it was just the 4 of us. We did everything together. And when Dean mentioned my confidence, sometimes it's a little too much. But that came from my mom. This was, was part of my speech. Even when days when you don't play well, things don't go your way. Mona Brings is always your greatest cheerleader. She's always going to be the first one up there telling you, hey, you know what, you did a great job. On the contrary, my dad, and this was one of my favorite stories. So when we were at the regional track meet, and Jimmy's here, we had just won. We were the 4x8 regional champions in the 4x8. So we won a gold medal. It's great. Came over, showed to my dad. It's like, this is awesome. But I saw the open 400 left, saw the 4x4 left. You can't rest on your laurels. For some reason, they just run the 4x8 finals first. I don't know why. I made it to the regional finals in the 400. It got delayed by like 10 or 15 minutes, and I couldn't remember why, but I ran a horrible race. I got 6th place in the heat, top 4 go to states. I had one of the best, like I should have qualified for states, I didn't, but Ray Jones did. We were very excited for Ray. Ray's an incredible athlete. Ray's going to be up here soon too. So this is one of my favorite lines. I never shared this with my dad, but it's always something that I always, so I walked back with the medal, because you still get a medal for some reason, you know, if you made it to the finals, I don't know. And he was like, you know, we just won a gold medal. And he was like, yeah, I don't want to see it unless it's gold. But it's one of my favorites. So I'm going to share a couple quotes today too. It's one of my favorite lines because as Dean talked about, always wanting to strive for excellence, always trying to get the best out of yourself, always finding a way to do that. One thing that people also don't know, I don't know if Mr. Pachola is here, Dominic Pachola gave my dad an A1 key to the school. So this was back before we didn't have security, we didn't have badges, and the A1 key was like the key. I don't know if anyone, like some of the, and what that allowed was, you know, when I was in high school, my dad and I would come, we would lift and shoot every morning. And I remember those mornings. And it, you know, it was hard sometimes to wake up. But you know, I'll never, you know, shooting in the gym with that A1 key, which I don't even know if that's still a thing. Is that still a thing?
It is. I have an A1.
You have an A1. Does the key still work though? I don't know. But I remember, Coach Kurt's got it. So, but I remember we went to the old barn. If you guys remember the old lifting barn, the old barn, the rusted weights, the smell. I talked to Coach Kessler last night about that. But you know, it was one of those things. Like I was never really physically gifted, but those little things, I think, putting in the extra time and effort is what really made me better. So most of my success is from the 3 on the slide here today. So that's one of my favorite lines I would share with my dad. I don't want to see it unless it's gold. This was after we won districts my freshman year. I was very fortunate to be on that team. And again, I'm going to keep looking at Blythe because I promised her I wouldn't do this. All right. So Dean. So this is one of my favorite quotes from Dean. So Dean played soccer his junior and senior year here at Academy. Had never really played before in his life. His junior year, he was the starting goalie on the JV team. But his senior year, he came up to varsity. We had a starting goalkeeper, Evan Barnes, who was an incredible goalie. Evan was amazing, first team all-district, ended up playing at the Naval Academy. But what Dean offered, and this is again what we talked about, like how do you make the team better? Dean came in, Mr. Tom called it 10 minutes of fury. I don't know if you remember this, Dean.
Oh, very well.
So very well. So Dean, at 6'3", 200 pounds, probably not the best soccer forward you're going to look for. But what he could give you, he could hit a baseball 450 feet. But what Mr. Tong asked of him was 10 minutes of fury. And I remember I sprained my ankle early in that season, and my parents came a little bit late to the game, and they said, "Oh, your son scored a goal today." And I remember my parents were like, "Well, he shouldn't be playing. Like he can't walk." And it was Dean scored against Zanesville Rosecrans, who at the time was one of the best teams in the state. And actually, that goal won us that game 3-2. For someone who had never played soccer before, but did everything he could again to make the team better today. So I quote this all the time: what can you do in your life to give 10 minutes of fury, no matter what your role is on a team? That 10 minutes of fury can be very, very profound and very, very meaningful. I do want to share a little bit with Mr. Tong. I know Drew's mentioned in this, most of my success, without Drew Lester, we don't win any of our district titles. We don't go to states in track. Half of this is Drew Lester's here too. One of my favorite Mr. Tong things was during our practices, he would sometimes say, he would make a bad call or say something or make us run more, and he was very stoic leader, man of very few words, but he would just yell at us like Coach Horton, looks you right in the eye, and it's like, when you started talking, I was like, it sends chills down our spines. That Coach Horton voice. Brandon still has, still strong numbers. But when you get that adversity strikes, when that hits, and this was one thing that always stuck with me. When you're playing sports, things oftentimes, they don't go your way. Life doesn't go your way sometimes. But how do you respond to that? When adversity strikes, how do you respond? And honestly, I think that's why we were so tough as a soccer team, we weren't always the biggest guys, we weren't always the strongest guys, but Mr. Tom made practices way harder than any game that we ever could imagine. And when the practices are harder than the games, that's when you know you're going to be successful out on the field there. So I've got a couple more good pictures here. This was from my freshman year. A lot of great athletes in this picture. And then shout out to Mr. Alexander, Kyle's dad, who's in the center here, who's our photographer. Lindsey Williams in this picture, I don't know if I've ever met a greater, just pure leader than Lindsey Williams. And I know he's in the Hall of Fame. I did want to give a shout out to a couple of people here. And like I said, Drew was on this team. Drew was a sophomore starter on basically an all-senior team here too. And many of these titles, again, like I said, wouldn't have happened without Drew Lester. Next up, as you can see here, this is a couple of my favorite pictures here. I don't think Mr. Exline ages. Every time I see him, it's like he's like in a, I don't know if he's got like a hyperbaric oxygen chamber or something. I don't know what he's doing, just good genes. And then Coach Worsler. So one of my favorite things, so last year I was coaching my son's fourth grade basketball team. And Blaine, you remember this, when all the guys on the team, we had a rough practice. It was just like nobody was paying attention. John Lazarus was there. Shout out to little John, yeah, he's our best listener. But I just happened to catch him. Right, so nobody was paying attention. So I told Blaine, I was like, hey, I want you to come and watch this varsity team. This current varsity team that's about to play this year, we've been watching basketball at Academy since 1990. This is probably the best team I've ever seen. And when we walked in the gym, Worsler saw us, acknowledged us. He said, hey, watch this. And as all the drills were going on, the level of intensity and accountability that Coach Worsler and Coach Exline had for their kids, it hasn't changed in 20 years. One of the things that they always said, like we said, was discipline and intensity were the big things. And then run it again. I can't say how many times Mr. Exline and Coach Worsler said, run it again. It's like, you didn't do it right, run it again. And that's really where that accountability piece came from. So I'm really excited, Jason. You guys got a stacked team this year. I can't wait to see this team go for a deep run this year. And next up, this is Coach Brown is in the house today. Coach Brown, one of my all-time favorites, especially in the Bring family. This is one of my quotes. Is we live by this as Brings: is don't talk about it, be about it. Always try to exemplify excellence in everything that you do. And this was a really fun ride for me. So my senior year, we had new basketball coaches. We had a new team. Old Biscuits and I running the pick and pop. I don't know if Tyler's here today. Yeah, there he is. He's sitting right there. Just look right over you. Yeah, we used to run that pick and roll. But man, we had a lot of fun. And Coach Jones would say the same thing. Again, that accountability piece and getting after people. And if you see here, don't judge on the right there. You can see an ill-fitted shirt and some pleated pants. I was able to help coach the district title team the year before I went off to medical school. And it was great because I grew up with this team. I grew up coaching. We used to pull Chris Crockett up into our varsity practices, another future Hall of Famer in there. Just looking at that list of student athletes there, Hobie's on there, right, Kelly? Yes, so I grew up with these guys, and watching them win and almost make it to states and being able to be part of that coaching staff was truly a tremendous honor. Now, Dean got to this too. I don't know how he knew where I was going with this. When I played on this AAU team called All Ohio Red, I was very fortunate to get pulled up onto this team before my senior year. And honestly, I probably had no business being on the team. I was the last guy on the bench, but again, the thing that I always looked at was, what can I do to make this team better today? What can I do to help us win? For those of you who don't know, this is the old Nike Peach Jam before it became EYBL. We beat some really, really good teams here. And you can see it's not a very big team. We only had 9 guys here. But these guys were competitors, and nobody on this team, there was nobody else on this team better than us except for one guy, Chris Paul. And that was the only time, and none of us knew, to be fair, none of us knew who he was at the time. But this was one of my most fun summers running with this team. And this was, and again, being able to serve as captain on this team while also sitting on the bench. And he's right, I never played. And I was trying to play basketball in college, and I remember something my dad told me where, I knew I was never going to play. Playing behind Drew Lavender and some of these other guys, I knew I was never going to play, right? So my dad always said, when you're in warm-ups, don't miss a single shot. Don't miss a single layup. Don't miss anything, because anyone that's watching you, that's going to be the only way that they're going to see you, is in the warm-up. but it's good advice. Because you always have to be dialed in and on. I'm really sorry. I'm gonna keep that. If anyone follows, I did want to mention, the Joe Valvano quote. If you listen to Gino Ariema, when he talks about how he recruits his players at UConn, he looks at things like body language and how do they respond when their teammates do well. And those are the things I always tried to do on this team. How do you lift your team up? How do you lift those around you up? And that was always kind of, I viewed my goal, which, was hard. I was a senior captain here. I was a leading scorer. Coach Brown will tell you all the plays. I tried to always call my own number for the plays there for those. But, and so sitting at the end of the bench was a great experience. This was my guy, Jerry Watson, one of our coaches, along with Bruce Howard, who were, just incredible coaches and mentors of mine. And I do want to share this picture. This was right after we lost in the national championship team in the game. This was down in Florida. So this was for, we just lost to, Chris Paul's team from North Carolina. And you can see kind of the look at everyone's faces. We all expected to win that game. We all expected to win that game. There was no way we were losing. We had the best players in the country. We'd only lost like 2 games the whole summer. And you can just kind of see the look of dejection. But, one thing I really took from this was some days it's your day and some days it's not your day. But, how do you respond and how do you move forward is really important. And, I still stay in touch with these guys through social media. Brandon and Drew on here, they both have sons. They're all about the same age. So in another, probably 4 or 5 years, you're going to be seeing these teams come back together. And then, when I started to think about Bob Kirk, it's like, well, geez, there should probably be a 30 for 30 on Bob Kirk. I don't know if you guys, when I sat down to think about, what do I say about Coach Kirk, there were so many things. I did want to share 2 stories, if that's okay with everyone. My sophomore year, we were at Hilliard-Davidson High School, and that year we had a really good 4x4 team. Unfortunately, we had a ton of weather issues, weather delays, and I remember the one thing he said, he pulled us all underneath the bleachers. It was pouring down rain, lightning everywhere, and he said, the team that's going to qualify is going to be the most mentally tough team tonight. I don't know if you remember telling us that. And that was really profound, because it wasn't that the fastest team, it was we had warmed up, lightning came, warmed up again, lightning came. And it was like, who's going to be the most mentally focused and mentally tough tonight to get through to regionals? That's something that, that's always stuck with me. I also did a little bit of research when Coach Kirk was inducted into the Hall of Fame through the Dispatch. One thing he always said in there was he did everything he could to get the best out of all of his athletes and got them on the podium even when they were probably below average. And I was that guy. And I remember Coach Kirk came to see me after a JV basketball game my freshman year and said, hey, you should think about running track. I had played baseball my whole life. And I was like, what's this guy talking about? And then, we started thinking about it, talking about it. It was honestly probably one of the best things I ever did. But if you go back and read that Dispatch article, I'm that guy that, fortunately was able to get up on the podium with great teammates. You can see here, there's Drew. And again, this was after we won a league title. Ryan Vessler, founder of Homage, in there too. One of my favorite quotes is, you think you're going to beat me. And I remember Coach Kirk used to go off on, sometimes 30-minute sessions of really getting people fired up before meets. And I remember he just looked, he's like, you got to look at the other guy in the blocks. And he's like, you think you're going to beat me? You think, he's like, pull your shorts up. This was back when short shorts weren't a thing. I know they're coming back now. He's like, pull your shorts up and go beat these guys. And, he really gave us an edge, a toughness, a competitive drive to really say, when we got out there on the track, nobody was going to beat us. And especially in the relays, he had a knack for putting together really, really great relay teams. The other night, I came over to my parents' house late to find this picture. This was our 4x800 team. Some of my best friends from high school there. Jimmy's here today. I was like, I had to give Jimmy a shout out. This was a really, really special team. We were all kind of about the same pace. We all held each other accountable. And one thing I remember Coach Kirk always had us do was come in the mornings and put in a couple extra miles before practice. And I always remember, why would we run before running at the end of school? But what we found out, and Mac and I would go out there and, we would do these, we would just do these laps our senior year. We try to run 2.5 miles. We would just do our, get our miles in. But that really gave us an edge. It really gave us an edge as we got through states and as we went, beyond. those extra miles are really, really what make a difference. This was from Coach Kirk's retirement party. We couldn't get Jack in the picture, but I always said we're going to Photoshop him in. But one of my favorite moments there. And then Kim Storkula, I wanted to throw a shout out. So Kim is a Ohio Athletic Trainers Hall of Fame inductee. I lived in the training room here. I was always hurt. I had sprained ankles, broken fingers, calloused feet. I mean, just you name it, I had it. Pulled hamstrings. Kim was the only one that was here. It was just her. And what an extraordinary human being Kim Storkula is. If you guys ever got to know her and spend time with her. And again, somehow she always got us all back into playing sports. Kim was fantastic. And it would be hard for me to not include her in the speech here today as well. But more importantly, I think somebody joked about this. There's a young Miranda Likely here. We were joking about this. Miranda won 3 state titles as a player and a coach. And the joke was, well, how are you getting into the Hall of Fame if Miranda won 3 state titles? She was a 2-time captain at the College of Worcester, an All-American there as well. And Miranda's been my best friend since probably 7th grade, but we kind of knew each other in 5th grade. It's great to share this today with Amy because I know how close Miranda and Amy were. But Miranda's always been by my side no matter what. As things have gone on, throughout your life. We've been dating since 2001 homecoming, so it is. We still kind of hang around, and then especially too, we've been fortunate, and this was kind of my last point was to talk about the academy experience. Being able to be part of the academy has been truly an honor and a blessing, and it's really made me the person that I am today. And I'm really fortunate that my kids get to live the academy experience here too. Allie's in 3rd grade, Blaine's in 5th grade. We've gotten to coach their teams. Being as deeply woven into the community here as we have been has really just been such a blessing. And my parents, sacrificed a lot. I don't know if you know this. We grew up in Grove City. And the levies in Grove City always failed, so a lot of times they didn't have sports teams and things like that. So my dad would drive us to school every day for 45 minutes, and then my mom would drive out here and pick us up and drive us home. And we did that every year until I was a freshman in high school. So it was a lot of miles and a lot of driving. But when you look back at the time and the money that was spent, there's nothing more valuable than when you get to see your kids grow up and live that life too. And so I'm forever grateful for those experiences. So again, I'm sorry I went a little bit over there. I had so many things to share with you guys today. But did want to congratulate Amy again, like I said, to be up here with Amy Murata. I can't wait to celebrate Amy Murata Day this year too, October 24th. Miranda added it to the calendar this morning. We got that in the Bring household, but what a tremendous honor. I just want to thank everyone for coming today too. And one last thing I will say, I think Miranda were you probably the best of the 3 Likely sisters? And we'll leave that up for debate. And just to kind of echo what Dean said, for me, family, nothing in your life will ever be more important than your family. When you look around, at the end of the day, always put your family first, no matter what. And that's something we've always lived by. I've got all my nieces here. If you guys see the little girls running around, they're all tired. Yeah. They just more lemonade. But we've got 6 of our nieces here today. Maya, Melanie, Maritza, and then Birdie, Sky, and Naomi, I think, is back there too. I think she might have just been sleeping. But anyway, thanks so much for listening. Thank you all so much for coming today. And thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. Thanks, Mandy.